I was working as a delivery person for a local pizza place. One late night, I received an order for 4 large pizzas. It was quite a long drive for delivery, about 20 minutes, but I didn't mind since it seemed like a big order for a party. Little did I know this would turn out to be the most terrifying experience of my life. Navigating the dark and bumpy dirt roads at night was always a bit annoying, but I finally arrived at the given address. It was an old and sketchy-looking building situated in the middle of a forest clearing. There were no cars parked anywhere, and no lights were on. I parked my car and called my boss, asking him to confirm the address multiple times to make sure I hadn't made a mistake. Everything checked out, but I could sense that my boss was in a sour mood. Reluctantly, I decided to at least knock on the door and check things out. My boss would usually get mad if we returned a single pie, let alone 4, so I couldn't risk going back empty-handed. Nerves took over as I walked towards the front door. There was no doorbell, so I knocked really hard, hoping for a response. Silence followed, and deep down, I didn't expect to hear anything. Feeling disappointed, I knocked once more out of desperation. To my surprise, I heard rustling noises coming from inside the building. Encouraged by this, I knocked again and shouted that I was the pizza guy. The rustling sound ceased abruptly, and an eerie silence filled the air. Now, I felt more uncomfortable than before. Just as I was about to turn around, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. Glancing towards the window, I saw a figure peering at me. It was impossible to discern if it was a man or a woman, but their eyes were wide open, wider than I had ever seen before. Those intense, penetrating eyes stared directly at me, sending shivers down my spine. Feeling disturbed, I dropped the pizzas and sprinted back to my car. But there was another hurdle. My car wouldn't start on the first try. I frantically turned the key 3 times before the engine finally roared to life. With adrenaline pumping through my veins, I drove off the grass and back onto the dirt road. However, something was off. The car started shaking and bumping as if it was being jostled from all sides. Panic washed over me, and before I knew it, the car came to a sudden halt. I stepped out of the car, heart pounding in my chest, and examined the situation. That's when I made a horrifying discovery. All 4 of my tires had been slashed. The attacker had meticulously targeted every single tire, rendering them useless. Fear gripped me as I realized that someone had done this while I was knocking on the door of that eerie building. Instead of fleeing, I hurriedly got back into the car, locked the doors, and dialed 911. I explained the situation to the operator, who assured me that the police would arrive as soon as possible. She advised me to stay in the car with the doors locked and stay on the line with her until help arrived. My whole body trembled uncontrollably, and the dense darkness of the seemingly endless forest outside only intensified my fear. Knowing it would take time for the police to reach me, I grew increasingly uneasy about remaining in the car, parked so close to the person who had slashed my tires. With each passing moment, my anxiety escalated. As I scanned the windows, making sure nobody was lurking outside, I glanced at the rearview mirror and froze in terror. There, in the reflection, I saw the same person I had glimpsed at the window before, those eyes wide open and a chilling smile beginning to spread across their face. My heart raced and instinct took over. Without a second thought, I flung open the car door and sprinted into the darkness of the surrounding woods, not caring how much noise I made. Breathless and trembling, I sought cover behind a giant fallen log on the forest floor. I tried to stifle my heavy breathing, placing a hand over my mouth, desperate not to give away my hiding spot. Time seemed to crawl as I waited anxiously, feeling like hours had passed. Every rustle of leaves or crack of twigs amplified my fear. Finally, in the distance, I heard the sound of sirens. With the last remnants of my strength, I mustered the energy to run back towards the direction of the dirt road. As I drew closer, the flashing red and blue lights of the police vehicles came into view. Relief flooded over me like a tidal wave. They were parked in front of my car, shining their flashlights around, investigating the scene. Bursting out of the woods, I approached the officers, frantically pleading for their help. Exhausted and overwhelmed, I collapsed to the ground, my body heaving with exertion. They rushed to my aid, lifting me up and offering reassurance. They began questioning me, and I recounted the entire harrowing experience as best I could. One of the police cars drove over to the ominous building while the other officers examined the slashed tires. After a thorough search, they returned with a few spiky objects in hand, identical to the ones used to damage my tires. The officers surmised that this was the twisted work of a disturbed couple, given the woman I had seen. However, despite their efforts, the culprits were never found, leaving a bitter feeling of unresolved fear and injustice. I made the decision right then and there to quit my job at the pizza place. The trauma of that night was too much to bear, and I sought solace in a new position at a local grocery store. The memory of those haunting eyes and that sinister smile will forever remain etched in my mind. A few years ago, I used to have an old iPhone 7, and it served me well. It was always shiny and scratch-free because I was super careful with it. But one day, something terrible happened. I lost my iPhone 7. I was devastated. I had always been smart and turned on the Find My Phone feature just in case I ever lost it, so I quickly realized my phone was missing, and my heart started pounding like a drum. I searched everywhere, from my cozy house to my trusty car, even the pathway leading up to our front door. I was desperate to find my phone. I even drove back to all the places I had been that day, hoping it would magically appear, but it was nowhere to be found. It was as if my phone had vanished into thin air. Then, a brilliant idea struck me. I remembered I could track my iPhone 7 using my laptop and my iCloud account, so I hurried home and logged in. With a sense of hope and excitement, I clicked on the Find My Phone setting. Guess what? The map showed that my phone was located in the mysterious woods at the end of our village. Oh, how my heart skipped a beat. But there was a problem. None of my siblings were home. They were all away at school, and I couldn't ask them to come with me. I explained the situation to my dad, and although he had to work early the next morning, he let me take his phone to track my phone. He was a bit worried, but he trusted me to be brave and careful. So, armed with my dad's phone and a little flashlight, I set off on my adventure. The woods were just a quick 5-10-minute drive away. I parked my car on the grass by the side of the road. As I stood there, staring into the darkness, the idea of venturing into those spooky woods became less and less appealing. Fear started creeping into my mind, but I knew I had no other choice. I mustered up all my courage and switched on my tiny flashlight. It barely lit up the trail, only showing a few feet in front of me. I took a deep breath and cautiously followed the trail deeper into the woods. With each step, the suspense grew. The branches rustled, and strange sounds echoed through the trees. The flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced on the forest floor. I couldn't help but wonder, who would be in the dark woods at such a late hour? And why did they have my phone? My heart pounded in my chest like a wild animal as I neared the exact location where my phone was supposed to be. I spun around, examining my surroundings, but all I saw was darkness and towering trees. It felt like a scene from a spooky movie. Then I decided to call out, hoping that someone would hear me, but my voice came out weak and trembling. The silence that followed was chilling. Suddenly, I heard whispers coming from beyond a cluster of trees in the same direction as the location on the map. Without thinking twice, I yelled out again, my voice filled with a mix of fear and determination. This time, the whispers stopped abruptly. I took a deep breath and sent a text message to my lost phone from my dad's phone. Ding, ding! The familiar sound echoed from the same direction as the whispers. My heart raced, and my hands trembled as I peered through the darkness. In the distance, I caught a glimpse of a glowing phone screen. It was so bright that it illuminated the figures of 2, maybe 3 men standing behind a line of trees. My mind raced with thoughts, and a realization struck me like a lightning bolt. I was way over my head, and my phone was not worth risking my life for. At that moment, I made a decision that would shape the rest of my adventure. I swiftly turned off my flashlight, plunging myself into darkness. And without wasting another second, I sprinted back down the trail toward my car. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, pushing me to run faster than ever before. As I reached my car, my lungs burning and my heart pounding, I glanced back toward the woods. The fear of what could have happened if I had stayed overwhelmed me. Breathing heavily, I fumbled for my keys and jumped into the safety of my car. Locking the doors, I took a moment to catch my breath and gather my thoughts. I reached for my dad's phone and opened the Find My Phone app once again. To my disappointment, my iPhone 7 was no longer traceable. It seemed that it had been either broken, disconnected, or deliberately turned off. Despite the loss of my beloved phone, I couldn't help but feel relieved. I knew deep down that I had made the right choice by prioritizing my safety over a mere possession. In the days that followed, I occasionally checked the app to see if my phone would miraculously reappear on the map, but it never did. It remained lost, forever separated from me. In the year 2011, something strange and scary happened to me. I had just gotten a brand new bicycle and decided to sell my old one. It was still in good shape, so I thought I could make a few $100 from it. My son, who knew how to use Craigslist, helped me create an ad and taught me how to post it. We included my phone number so interested people could call or text me. Days went by, and I started to feel impatient because nobody seemed interested in buying my bicycle. But then, after 6 long days, I finally received a text from someone late in the day. They showed interest in coming to buy the bike right away. I was thrilled and told them they could come over immediately. I even gave them my address. On that particular day, I found myself alone at home. My wife and younger son had gone shopping while my older son was out with his friends. As I sat in the living room watching TV, darkness fell outside, and I heard a car pulling up in front of my house. Curious, I peeked through the window and saw 3 grown men stepping out of the car. Seeing 3 strangers get out of the car made me feel uneasy. I wondered why they needed so many people just to check out a bicycle. One of them rang the doorbell, and they must have seen me standing by the window because they knew I was there. With cautious curiosity, I opened the door, and the man in front reached out his hand to shake mine. He said his name was Jeffrey, or at least that's what he claimed. Jeffrey was a big guy, and it was clear he spent a lot of time lifting weights. He had a thick beard and a deep voice. However, he didn't introduce the other 2 men who stood behind him, staring blankly at me. I invited them to come around to the back of the house to see the bike. Jeffrey and one of his friends followed me while the 3rd man asked to use the restroom. This request puzzled me. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should let a stranger into my house while I was outside with his 2 friends. But as I looked at the 2 friends, their eyes fixed on me, I nervously gave him directions to the bathroom. As he disappeared into my house, I hurriedly walked to the shed to get the bicycle. While I fetched the bike, my mind raced, and I started questioning my decision to let a random man use my bathroom. As I returned with the bicycle, I noticed that Jeffrey scrutinized every little detail of the bike. He nitpicked things that no one would even think about, like slightly bent spokes or scuff marks on the reflector. I found myself busy answering his questions and defending the bike's condition, unaware of the man who had supposedly been in my bathroom for nearly 10 minutes. Feeling uneasy, I told them to keep examining the bike while I went inside to fetch something. As I entered my house, panic surged through me as I realized something alarming. The bathrooms were empty. Both the 1st floor and upstairs bathrooms were vacant. Just then, I heard murmurs and footsteps in my living room downstairs. To my horror, it sounded like Jeffrey calling my name. Fear gripped my heart, and I thought that this night might be my last. I quietly closed the bathroom door, locked it, and switched off the lights. However, I couldn't control my racing heart. I picked up my phone and dialed 911, whispering as quietly as I could to the operator. I urgently pleaded for the police to come, fearing for my life. The operator, sensing the intensity of the situation, reassured me to remain calm and instructed me to explain the situation quietly. With trembling hands, I relayed the details, desperately hoping for help. The operator advised me to stay in the locked room until the police arrived. With bated breath, I anxiously awaited their arrival. Moments later, I heard footsteps approaching the bathroom door. My heart pounded in my chest as I listened to someone attempting to turn the locked handle. The intruders realized they couldn't gain entry, and one of them whispered in a low voice, "He's in there." I relayed this terrifying development to the operator, who urged me to stay strong and assured me that help was on the way. My pulse raced as I heard a series of loud bangs on the door, followed by more and more forceful kicks. Panic surged through me, but with all my strength, I managed to scream, "The cops are almost here!" Miraculously, the relentless kicking ceased. The intruders began whispering among themselves, and then their heavy footsteps retreated, descending the stairs. I didn't dare leave the safety of the bathroom until the police arrived. The minutes felt like hours as I clung to my phone, praying for their swift arrival. Finally, the sound of approaching sirens broke through the tense silence. Relief washed over me as the police entered my home. I recounted the chilling events, detailing the strange men and their aggressive behavior. The officers listened attentively, their expressions a mix of concern and determination. As they assessed the situation, I realized that several items were missing from my house. My wallet, which had been on the kitchen counter, along with a couple of watches and my iPad, was gone. And of course, the bicycle I had intended to sell had vanished from the backyard. The officers empathized with my ordeal and assured me that they would do everything in their power to catch the culprits. One of the officers expressed a grave realization. Given the intruder's attempt to break into the bathroom, it became apparent that their intention was to kill me. The cop's words sent shivers down my spine, leaving me haunted by the thought that this encounter could have ended tragically. From that day forward, I vowed never to use Craigslist again. My girlfriend and I embarked on an exciting road trip to California. The journey there went smoothly. We set off early in the morning, filled with excitement, and reached our hotel safely by nightfall. It was a wonderful adventure. However, our journey back home took an unexpected turn. We decided to leave midday, not realizing that the majority of our drive would be in the darkness of the night. The road stretched before us for about 10 long hours each way, not including our stops for food. We made 2 food stops during our trip, the first after driving for about 3 hours and another much later into the night. On our way back, as the clock struck 12:30 at night, we decided to get off the freeway and find the nearest Wendy's to grab a bite to eat. My hunger was urging me to eat while driving, but my girlfriend was rightfully concerned about poor driving conditions. I reluctantly agreed and pulled over as it started to rain heavily outside. While I finished up my food, we heard a sudden and loud bang on the window. At first I thought it was just the noise from the storm, but when I looked to my left, I saw a figure blocking almost the entire window. My girlfriend let out a shriek, and my heart skipped a beat. I didn't want to open the window due to the pouring rain, but the person outside was desperately asking for a ride. Considering the terrible conditions and the fact that we couldn't simply turn her away, I reluctantly told her to get in the back seat. My girlfriend gave me a look, a mix of concern and confusion, questioning my decision. Ignoring her disapproving gaze, I asked the woman where she needed to go. Strangely, she didn't answer. I turned around to face her in the back seat, hoping she hadn't heard my question. However, she was staring right at me with a cold, unfriendly expression. Her face appeared neutral, but there was something unsettling about it. I repeated my question, and once again, she simply shrugged her shoulders, leaving me puzzled. My girlfriend's worried eyes darted back and forth between the woman and me, unsure of what to make of the situation. To break the silence, I announced that I would drop the woman off at the next town we crossed. My girlfriend's expression remained skeptical, but there was nothing else we could do at that moment. As we got back on the deserted highway, suddenly, an ear-piercing scream erupted from behind me, and the woman in the back seat wrapped her arms around my throat, choking me. In a panic, I slammed on the brakes, struggling to breathe and almost losing control of the car. My girlfriend, acting swiftly, slashed at the woman's face with her long nails. The once deranged screams of anger transformed into cries of pain and agony. Seizing the moment, I managed to free myself and hastily got out of the car, gasping for air. The rain poured relentlessly as I opened the back door, grabbed the woman with both hands and forcefully threw her out into the downpour. She begged, pleading repeatedly with a heartbreaking tone. However, I couldn't let fear cloud my judgment, so I ignored her pleas and swiftly returned to the safety of my locked car, shifting it into drive. As we drove away, the woman's screams continued, banging on the window. The sound of her screams resembled those of a patient in a deranged mental asylum. We decided not to stop again, proceeding straight home. The incident left us shaken and on edge, but we didn't want to dwell on it any longer than necessary. My girlfriend wasted no time in reporting the incident to the police, providing them with all the details we could remember. We hoped that our actions would help protect others from encountering the same perilous situation. It was back in 2015 when my little sister Rose and I, along with her friends Emma, Mia, and Olivia, decided to go camping in a beautiful forest in Maine. We were all excited about this adventure, especially me. because I had more experience with camping. The forest's name escaped my memory, but it was filled with towering trees and vibrant wildlife. As the responsible older brother, I packed all the necessary camping supplies: food, water, tools, and of course, my trusty rifle. I always bring a gun while camping, not because I expect trouble, but because it helps me feel safe in the middle of the woods at night. Rose insisted that I sleep in a separate tent from theirs, and I was fine with that arrangement. So we packed 2 tents and set off on our journey. Once we arrived and set up camp, I helped the girls with their tents while they chatted and giggled. It was amusing to see them in their little group, full of energy and excitement. After finishing their tents, I focused on setting up mine, not too far away from theirs. I made sure to position it close by to keep an eye on my sister and her friends. With my reading light on, I nestled inside the tent and continued reading the book I had brought along. The sound of the girls chatting in the neighboring tent was a bit distracting, but I didn't mind. At some point, their conversation turned to a certain boy, and then it shifted to Snapchat. Their voices grew louder, unintentionally catching my attention. Emma mentioned that she didn't have Olivia on Snapchat and asked for her username. Being curious, I couldn't help but eavesdrop on their conversation. Olivia gave Emma her username, and after about 5 to 10 minutes, Olivia sounded confused, mentioning that some random person had added her on Snapchat. My curiosity grew even stronger as I listened intently. The girls encouraged Olivia to add the person back and find out who it was. Within moments, they started discussing how the person's Snapchat score was unusually low, only around 7. My interest peaked as they described receiving a message from the stranger saying, "Hi, send me a tic." I raised my head from my book, fully engrossed in their conversation. What could this stranger want? Their whispers and giggles made it difficult to hear clearly, but the eruption of laughter that followed hinted that they had sent some kind of funny picture in response. After a brief silence, all of a sudden, the girls screamed, piercing the tranquil forest air. My heart raced, and instinct kicked in. I grabbed my gun and bolted outside towards their tent. Rose's piercing scream intensified my worry. Without hesitation, I fired 3 shots into the air, hoping to scare away anyone lurking nearby. Simultaneously, I yelled into the dense woods, warning them to stay away. I swiftly crawled into their tent, where Rose immediately clung to me, seeking comfort and safety. I pretended not to know the details of what had unfolded, even though I had already overheard most of their conversation. I asked them what had happened, urging them to recount the incident. They explained that Olivia had added the random person back on Snapchat, and that person had responded with a picture. To their horror, it was a selfie of an old, creepy man standing right in front of their tents, a wicked smile on his face. Just the thought sent chills down my spine. Listening to their story, I realized we were all genuinely frightened. The incident left me chilled to the bone. I was just as scared as my sister and her friends. They pleaded with me to stay in their tent that night, seeking reassurance and safety in my presence. We hardly slept that night, as it was filled with fear and unease. The next morning, we decided to cut our camping trip short. The beautiful memories we had hoped to create were overshadowed by the nightmare we had experienced. We hurriedly packed our belongings and headed straight for the safety of our car. My name is Deborah, and when I was a curious 14-year-old, I was in my last year of middle school. It was an ordinary day in math class when nature called, and I had to use the bathroom. Our teacher had this funny wooden plank that we were supposed to carry as a bathroom pass. So I left my seat and strolled through the school hallways with the wooden pass in my hand. As I made my way to the main floor bathroom, I noticed a sign on the door that said, "Out of order, use upstairs or downstairs bathroom." Just as I was about to turn around, a random older guy approached me. He had a friendly smile on his face and asked me if I knew where the nearest bathroom was. I nodded and told him, "Yeah, you can go either upstairs or downstairs." He thanked me kindly and headed towards the stairs. Wanting to avoid any more conversation, I decided to go downstairs instead. I wondered who that guy could be. Surely not a staff member, perhaps a parent visiting the school. Downstairs, where there were only 4 bathrooms and extra locker rooms for the sports teams, I opened the door to the bathroom. The light was off, as it usually was for this least used bathroom. I walked to the stall, covered the toilet seat with paper, and sat down. It was then that something strange happened. Suddenly, a bright white light started flashing inside the bathroom, and the sound of the fire alarm blared from outside. My heart dropped as I realized it was a fire drill. I panicked because I didn't know what to do. It was the first fire drill of the year, and I wondered if I would get away with just using the bathroom while everyone else was outside. The flashing light became more annoying, and the alarm grew louder. Then I heard the bathroom door open, and someone began walking toward my stall. I caught a glimpse of his feet underneath the stall door. I assumed it must be a teacher coming to check if any students were left behind. Surprisingly, the person didn't say anything. Uncertainty filled the air as I debated whether I should speak up or remain silent. I nervously glanced at his shoes, which were facing the door. But then I noticed something chilling. There was an eye pressed against the 1-inch crack of the stall door. The man's eye was wide open, as if staring directly into my soul. A shiver ran down my spine. But then, to my horror, he got on his knees and stuck his head underneath the stall door to get a closer look at me. It was the same man from the hallway. I was frozen with fear as he crawled into the stall and grabbed hold of me, covering my mouth to prevent me from screaming. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. My young mind couldn't process the danger I was in. It felt like my life was flashing before my eyes, at an age when I thought I was invincible. Fear surged through my veins, as I had no idea what this man intended to do to me. The fire alarm continued to blare loudly, making it difficult to think clearly. Just when I thought there was no hope, the bathroom door swung open. It was the principal's voice, asking if anyone was inside. At that moment, instinct took over, and I screamed as best as I could, muffled by the man's hand. The principal heard my cry for help and rushed over to the stall, desperately trying to open the door. He shouted, "Open the door!" But the man, still gripping me tightly, forcefully opened the stall door right into the principal's face and ran out as fast as he could. The principal, being an old man, couldn't chase after him, but he immediately came to my side, comforting and reassuring me. He hugged me tightly, his eyes filled with emotion and concern. He told me to come with him so we could call my parents and ensure my safety. Walking out of the bathroom, I felt a mix of embarrassment and relief. All my friends saw me, almost in tears, walking with my parents to their car. It was humiliating to be the center of attention, but I couldn't help but feel grateful for the principal's quick response and support. Later, I learned that the principal had seen the man pull the fire alarm and rush downstairs. Despite his age, he had mustered the courage to check the bathroom first, ensuring that no student was left behind. His dedication and bravery touched my heart deeply. Years have passed since that terrifying incident. Sadly, the principal passed away 5 years ago, but his memory lives on in my heart.